Welcome to GLI Live. I am so excited for this opportunity to recognize World Hepatitis Day with some fantastic patients and patient advocates whom I admire, respect, and are privileged to call my friends. My name is Donna Cryer. I am the host of GLI Live, the Global Liver Institute's response to COVID-19 and our work to engage with patients, whether they have liver conditions, are immunocompromised, or just anybody who during this time who needs a little more information and connection. I also have the privilege of being the founder and CEO of the Global Liver Institute and leading our teams in the US and Europe. So for those of you who have been watching over the past few weeks, you know we've been able to bring you experts from around the world on a host of different topics. Today, in recognition of July 28th, World Hepatitis Day, which really is just shining a spotlight on what we need to be doing every day for the millions of patients and families and communities that are dealing with the impact of viral hepatitis. But today I have the opportunity to host this wonderful discussion with Karen Hoyt, who is now I'm happy to announce Global Liver Institute's community engagement leader. So thank you for Karen for stepping up to take that on. But Karen is a viral hepatitis patient, blogger, author, community leader, alum of our Advanced Advocacy Academy. And Karen, I'm so happy to have you with us. And Chari Cohen is a doctor of public health and is the Senior Vice President of the Hepatitis B Foundation and an Associate Professor of the fantastic Baruch Institute, which does so much wonderful research in hepatitis B. So thank you, both of you, for being on our show today.
Thank you so much, Donna. It's such a pleasure to be with you, especially on this day with the word virus being thrown around so much. And now for us to have the opportunity to talk about a viral hepatitis that has a medication, a transmission, a cure, and then the other one, of course, has a vaccination. And Dr. Chari, we got to meet in another Zoom call, and I love your voice for patients, of course, as always. And it's a pleasure to meet you, Dr. Cohen.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Donna, for having me. I'm really excited to be here. And Karen, honored to be sitting virtually alongside you. There's really no better way of commemorating World Hepatitis Day.
Fantastic. So, you know, for GLI, the first membership that we, that we engaged in, the first organization we joined was the World Hepatitis Alliance. The second was the National Viral Hepatitis Roundtable. So we have been, committed to this cause and this issue for, all 6 years, all this long, not even a decade yet, but all our entire existence, from before we even got our 501c3 filed. When we were in that very process, it was a priority for me to be able to do. And World Hepatitis Day has come such a long way in engaging literally in the entire globe in this fight. And it's so important because worldwide 290 million people are living with viral hepatitis unaware. Let's just say that again, 290 million people are living with viral hepatitis and they don't know it. That's why this is so important. And so when the World Hepatitis Alliance and all of us participating in this World Hepatitis Day campaign talk about finding the missing millions, it is going to take more than a day to reach out and screen and diagnose and link to care all the different people in all the different types of communities and settings who are walking around, who are living their everyday lives and don't know that they already have some form of viral hepatitis. So that is why this is so important. And what we're talking about today really affects everybody who's listening, everybody I say if you have a liver, you're at risk of some type of liver disease, and the viral hepatitis story really does bring that point home. And Karen, you have lived that. So please tell us about your experience with viral hepatitis and why World Hepatitis Day and these activities are so important to you.
Well, it's important because I didn't really know. I thought the people who got cirrhosis, Donna, I thought they were alcoholics. And then when I was hospitalized with end-stage liver disease, you know, we talk now about viruses being asymptomatic, and I was truly asymptomatic until just a few days before school started, and my liver failed. I was cycling on the Arkansas River, and my liver failed. And they put me in the hospital and began to give me blood transfusions. And then through this word hepatitis C, which I briefly understood a little bit about non-A or B when I started out nursing school in my early adult life, and but it was all very vague to me. And when I got onto the internet, I'll never forget, in the middle of the night, I had reverse sleep pattern, and I'll never forget Googling, and I had pictures of varices and my own body, and I put them all in files underneath my bed. I didn't want to look. There's a shock and a trauma. And so I'll never forget the trauma of my diagnosis, and I'll never forget the lack of safety that I felt. And I was not able to reach into the internet and find anyone. There were a few people, Alan Franciscus and a few people were doing some work with hepatitis C patients. And I vowed that if I lived through this, that I was going to start a website, because I'm an educator. And I wanted to have people to have a place to call home, and a place where they could learn and come and feel safe. And then together, let's go look at the box under the bed. And what does it really look like in there? At that time, the word varices terrified me. And, you know, the thought of transplant was just overwhelming. And I was able to gradually kind of rip off my denial. My doctors helped me to do that, you know, in the clinic setting. But then alone, when I'm home alone, then it was in these small groups and these forums, and we began to grow. We were like this underground colony of people who were just growing and helping each other and caring for each other. And then I started the website and began to, I got the 1-year treatment, almost died, lost my insurance. At one point, I was just like, when I started my website, I thought I could be like a year of an Oprah show, because everything that could go wrong did. And I survived in spite of it. And I came to see that as kind of being a gift, that I don't think there's anything a patient can talk about that I can't say, I think I understand. Let's talk a little bit more. And I'm able, I went and got Kleenex, because when we talk about the missing millions every day, and I'm so glad you're here, Chari, because now my website is extended out. People from all kinds of liver disease find my website because of the diet, because of the no fear, and because of the no stigma, and they come in and they want to chat underground. And I heard from a man this morning, and he lives in Portugal, and he's run out of his hepatitis B medication, and because of the virus that's spreading throughout Spain and Portugal, he's getting really sick. And can you tell me how to make your bone broth soup? This is an email at 5 a.m. So I talk about this global movement that you've got going on, and I'm so glad you invited me to be a part of GLI. And then I came back the next year, and I was able to help lead on storytelling, which I know, Chari, that's where we overlap on getting the patient's story told, and someone we can all identify with. So I think about it globally, and so much needs to be done on every single continent. People's needs aren't being met. And yet here in the wealthiest country in the world, we're very focused, and I'm glad we're focused on COVID, but the word virus should be on the tip of everybody's tongue every day. Like you said, viral hepatitis A, viral hepatitis B, viral hepatitis C, find the missing millions. Let's make this part of our dialogue, get rid of the stigma, and begin to help people to get treated, vaccinated.
Absolutely.
That's kind of my story.
That's just the beginning, and it's such a important story, and I resemble I resemble those remarks in a lot of ways, and the fact that you have experienced so much and lived to tell the tale does add weight and gravity when you say, I understand you, because you really do. People often say that, but it's in often a dismissive way. You really have been through those days and nights and suffering in the hospital or the clinic, or those thoughts in the midnight hour that so many people face, and that what makes you so effective. I'm going to ask you, before I turn to Chari, to just define cirrhosis and varices for people. It's just some of the terms that you mentioned. This is why we do liver
Well,
lingo bingo in, you know, in A3. But, you know, just for people who are watching who may be new to this or haven't experienced that, I want them to be able to follow along and understand just what was happening to you.
well, as our liver tries to heal itself due to the inflammation, hepatitis C creates a lot of inflammation, and that just means our liver's hot and it's getting wounded. And so our body's so wonderful, it sends out like little Band-Aids. And so we make fibrous collagen, just like we would heal a wound on our, if we cut our hand, but our liver keeps making wounds heal and wounds heal. And in the process of doing that, it creates fibrous bands. And eventually that does create cirrhosis, and it stops up the blood. It just kind of, it's like clogs all the arteries up. So in my case, the blood moved, instead of going down and through my liver as a filter, the blood came back up into my stomach and into my esophagus. And I've probably had 15 varices bandings. I've had numerous bleed outs. And, but also I just talked to a lady the other day and she had a bleed out from below. So the blood can try to come out other places. So that's the varices. And then what they do is they just go in and band them. And it's a frightening thing. And what was the other word you asked? Because I also had hepatic encephalopathy.
Okay. So you explained the cirrhosis, which was the fibrosis and scarring and collagen process, and then varices, which is the blood, and then hepatic encephalopathy, which we, you know, as many people know as brain fog. That's another aspect of this. So there's a lot of terms, and, you know, we actually, GLI has a glossary that we're happy to put in the show notes for people to better understand these terms that are often, you know, thrown around in the different, you know, Facebook groups that people are joining and things. But you do such a wonderful job of explaining in your blog and in your work all these different things that people are going through, the different tests and treatments that they go through. So Chari, Hepatitis B Foundation, I have to admit, you know, the founders of the Hep B Foundation are some of my mentors, Tim and Joan Block. They're people that I looked to when I think about what makes for an effective advocacy organization. And so, you know, I sort of, you know, fangirl. And so I know you have, you know, you came into with big shoes which I'm not afraid to admit. People ask who are my heroes, you know, and I had to think long and hard, but not so long that I don't come up with the name of the blocks. So I wanted to give them just a word and shout out of honor. And so, you know, it's one of those, if they chose you, you must be amazing. And you are. And so Chari, tell us about the amazing work of the Hep B Foundation and the Baruch Institute.
Oh, thank you, Donna. That's very kind. I think it's more that I was there. I've been there. So I've actually been at the foundation for 21 years. And so I guess it just sort of, Joan figured she would sneak away and just sneak me in. But yeah, no, you're right. Joan and Tim Block, co-founders of the Hepatitis B Foundation, have taught me everything I know. They're my mentors, and still are. Many a day that I call Joan and say, Joan, what do I do about this? My what would Joan do moment. And yes, they are. They took an idea. They knew there was a need, and they tried to fill it. And they took a small idea and had big aspirations. And I think it's grown. The Hepatitis B Foundation has grown since 1991 from a small sort of dining room table organization into a global organization, and I think has been able to help push the agenda for hepatitis B forward and elevate the patient voice. So we're thrilled to be able to carry on their torch that they lit for us. So for those who don't know, the Hepatitis B Foundation is a small nonprofit organization. Our mission is twofold. One is to find a cure for hepatitis B. And we do that through our research arm, which is the Baruch S. Blumberg Institute. Obviously, you recognize the name. It's named for Dr. Barry Blumberg, who won the Nobel Prize for discovery of the hepatitis B virus in 1967, and also for developing the first vaccine. Today, World Hepatitis Day, July 28th, is actually Dr. Blumberg's birthday. So I'm really happy to be celebrating. And if you can see this, I'm actually wearing my hepatitis B scarf. This is an electron micrograph that Dr. Blumberg took, so well, with partners. So it's something I wear to remind me of his place in all of this. And so we do have scientists working every day to find a cure for hepatitis B, which we very desperately need. And then at the Hepatitis B Foundation, we are the outreach, advocacy, awareness, education, public health, and policy arm of things. And so 292 million people are living with chronic hepatitis B, and I think we very personally represent each and every one of them. So really working to make sure that people are aware of their infection and have access to care. You know the stats, right? Worldwide, only 10% of people know they have hepatitis B, and in the US, only 25% of people know they have hepatitis B. And I think the big issue is that everyone is really scared about and everyone cares about is liver cancer. Right. Both hepatitis B and hepatitis C lead to liver cancer. People living with chronic hepatitis B can silently have the infection from birth where unfortunately there was mother-to-child blood transmission and can be infected with hepatitis B for decades without knowing it, but without proper management and treatment up to 25%. So 1 in every 4 person who has chronic hepatitis B will die prematurely from cirrhosis or liver cancer. And it's completely preventable, and that's what we have to work on. We can eliminate hepatitis B. We have the vaccine, we have treatments, and hopefully fairly soon we will have a cure. But in the meantime, we're here to get people tested and into care to try and help both nationally and internationally meeting the 2030 elimination goals.
Thank you, Chari. That's so fun. You know, the thought that this is a vaccine preventable cancer, vaccine preventable disease, is what always strikes me in our conversations about liver cancer. You know, as we've built a liver cancer council to bring organizations together, in which you've both been a part. And Karen, if I'm not mistaken, you've actually gone that path as well. So we've all talked to Congress, to policymakers, to health centers about connecting their patients and bringing all patients who have had some type of diagnosed liver disease, particularly viral hepatitis, in for 6-month screening for liver cancer. Those are things that don't happen often enough. So, as we think about these, often big, lofty, global and national elimination goals seem so huge or unachievable, but when we really break them down into, individual goals and community goals and health system goals, county, state, and then, national goals to eliminate it, I think they are achievable. They are achievable. And I thank you for, the leadership that the Hep B Foundation has given us to work on this issue. Karen, from the cancer perspective, do you want to talk about sort of that part of the journey and the needs, information and education about that link between viral hepatitis and liver cancer?
Yeah, well, it was, it's kind of a blow to find out, yeah, I did it. I did that year of treatment. And of course, it's not as long now. Hepatitis C has a quick, simple, easy cure. Within a matter of a couple of months, you can be cured. Unlike hepatitis B, we have a cure. We don't have a vaccine, but we have a cure. But after my treatment, so about 1.5 years went by, and my transplant, I was through with got my MELD score down to 7, but I was still brain foggy. And I thought that, oh, well, everything's going to be okay. But they insisted I come in for that 6-month surveillance. And sure enough, there's a protein our body makes that pings a little radar, and my blood marker went up. And 6 months later, they found a good sized, fast growing tumor. And I said, well, don't call it after a fruit, give it a sport. So they said, okay, a little bigger than a golf ball, because I didn't want the lemon or the kiwi or anything. And I began the process of, don't ruin that for me. So then I began the process of getting listed for a liver transplant. And once again, Donna, and I coming from a family with, my grandmother was a public health nurse. My family are educators. And I have a little bit of gumption, and I have enough education that I can make my way around in a community environment, and I can speak for myself. And so when I got cancer, I knew how to go in and advocate for myself. I knew how to get my needs met, and I knew how to, jump all the bars. And so many people who are in the process of getting listed, they have a lapse here or a hole there, and all it takes is a couple of misses and you're off the list. You come outside the Milan criteria, which that just means you've popped another tumor and now you've got too many. And that happened to me. I ended up with that extra tumor and I said, let's get me in quick then. Let's do another bone scan. I knew what the timelines were. And that's where, as patients, we're looking at the finite every day, the minute little details of trying to stay alive and looking at our family and trying to do that whole emotional intelligence thing that we trying to stay calm.
Right.
And we need people like you, Dr. Cohen, to speak for us, to be our, to speak to the policymakers, to speak to the doctors. The AASLD has begun to really turn more, and I get to represent now on the patient-facing committee with that, working on COVID. But we're so glad that the clinicians, and you mentioned researchers and the research that the doctors have done, that's so important to know that people who still have their wits about them and they're fighting for us. And all we have to do is keep jumping over those bars because someone's fighting for us to help keep us alive. And not just in the United States, not just in the Western, developed countries, but all over the world. People in India, people in Pakistan, people everywhere are able to access. There's good transplant medicine going on everywhere, and to be able to access that care.
One of the board members, one of our founding GLI board members, we connected because I was sharing my excitement about a public health program from Taiwan that I wanted to apply in the US. And she was like, had you seen my remarks already? And I was like, no. And she's like, that's exactly what I wanted to speak on. And, and that's why the Global Liver Institute was conceived as a global organization from the beginning, both because of the global scope and scale and impact of liver disease and the opportunity for promoting liver health. But also because I wanted to make sure that we were taking the best practices from wherever they were found in the world, the innovations from wherever they were found in the world, and applying them and accelerating their adoption, if we could, in other places of the world. And the US has as much or more to learn, particularly in areas of liver disease and cancer fighting, from other countries as we have to contribute. And so, Chari, do you want to talk a little bit more about, the needs in research, or the, exciting, new areas of research that you're working on?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think from a cure perspective, research on a cure for hepatitis B has exploded in the past few years. We had a pretty dry run there for a while. We have obviously FDA approved antivirals and an interferon, and then for many years, very little happened. And after the cure was found for hepatitis C, it really invigorated, I think, both the patient and the research community around the world. We've done this for Hep C, we can do it now for hepatitis B. And so there are researchers around the world working on hepatitis B cure. And if you look at the Hepatitis B Foundation Drug Watch, where in 2009 we may have had 6 or 7 drugs in the research pipeline, there's now 27 drugs in the research pipeline for hepatitis B. And we are very, very hopeful that in the future, within 5 or 10 years, you may see some combination of those drugs lead to better treatment outcomes, perhaps even a functional cure, without people having to take medicine for the rest of their life. So right now, as you know, for hepatitis B, it's antivirals every day for the rest of your life, which poses, as Karen was saying, access is a major issue in the US and around the world. People can barely access testing for hepatitis B, let alone pay for treatment for the rest of their lives. Even getting liver cancer screening every 6 months can be a real barrier. So we are looking forward to seeing the new progress. There are new clinical trials coming down the pike, and we are excited to see people from around the world take advantage of those opportunities without a doubt. And I think that's part of the excitement of, as you said, finding best practices and strategies where you can and replicating them or tweaking them to see where they can work. There are incredible programs happening around the world. So you're right, Taiwan, Hainan City, China, there's programs in Ghana and Kenya and Mongolia, all working on hepatitis B elimination, and we're learning from them. In the United States, we have our Hep B United Coalition. We are now in 40 cities across the US, and these are all, community organizations, health departments, and academics really working to what are the best strategies in their own small communities and they're finding things that work. They're finding strategies that get people tested and get people vaccinated and into care. And then we share it with each other. So you can take something with very limited resources and sort of explode it so that it has a much farther reach.
You know, that crossed my mind. I noticed that that Project Echo, which we all know, which was at the forefront of scaling hepatitis, treatment to people who, didn't have teams of hepatologists, particularly for viral hepatitis treatment, and expanding access to care in many rural communities and now around the world, had been nominated, and I think was a finalist for a MacArthur Genius Fellowship. So we're certainly supportive of that nomination, and just that, model and example of scaling innovation and ensuring that patients had access to care from hepatologists, from care from specialists, and promoting liver health, wherever we may find it, in every community, and not abandoning any one community. So as we wrap this up, I want to give each of you an opportunity to set a call to action for all of our viewers. We'll certainly put the link to World Hepatitis Day, so everybody can access all of those materials. We'll be able to see the sign-on letter that was created, and understand all that information. But from each of you, personally, from your organizations and your experience, what would you most like people to know and do? So Dr. Cohen, I'll start with you.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, so the key to eliminating hepatitis is going to be political will and prioritization. We have the keys to eliminate. We have the tools. We have the strategies. We need the political will. And in order to make that happen, what you need is a strong voice. And so this is the call to action for everyone around the world who is impacted by hepatitis B, whether it's you or your family member or a friend or someone you know. Raise your voice, talk about hepatitis B, come share the discussion, join the discussion. All of our organizations are constantly on social media. There are tons of educational opportunities out there and opportunities to share your story. We are collecting stories now from around the world, and then we use those stories and we can empower people to help overcome stigma, overcome discrimination, and take it to their leaders. So the stronger voice, the stronger the voice we have, the more we can convince our governmental leaders and other key stakeholders and funders that hepatitis B needs to be addressed. So be loud. That's my call to action today.
I can get behind that.
Well, I don't need to repeat, because I just agree 100%. I'm aligned with all of your goals. And as a patient, I'm just going to say, let's be healed. Let's be whole. Let's let our voices for HEP be loud. Don't allow stigma to hold you back, but run with endurance, the race that's set before you, and look behind you and look beside you. There are a lot of people who are running the same race. So again, that storytelling is so important. Tell your neighbors, tell your friends. I had a civic engineer who lived in a city nearby me who died of liver cancer. No one at his funeral knew that he had Hep C because he was embarrassed. And that happened in 2008. When that's still going on, not 2018, I'm sorry. When that's still going on, I started to tag on 2008 was the first hepatitis, the World Hepatitis Day. We've come a long way in 12 years, and I can't wait to see what we've done. Look how we've united this year with COVID. Look what's happening with the one world, the one voice that's going on around all liver disease. Donna, I just honor you and the work you're doing. And you just, we're just on the ground running. And I look forward to you for a year in patient engagement. And I'm with you. Let's keep telling the story. I just tell everybody, tell your story. Don't be ashamed. Let it go.
Hear, hear.
Thank you so much. I really can only reinforce that. I think for those of us, liver patients in particular, who are amongst the found millions, who are fortunate enough to have been diagnosed and linked to care and to receive life-saving treatment, we owe it to everyone, as you said, beside us, behind us, in front of us, to speak and to act on their behalf. So I absolutely agree. And I thank you so much for this opportunity to lend all of our voices to the World Hepatitis Day discussion. And so I thank everybody who has watched this, everybody who has supported this. I want to thank all of GLI's COVID-19 program sponsors, Bristol Myers Squibb, Novartis, Pharma, Retrophin, and frankly, the administration through the SBA program. GLI wouldn't be around and able to do this without all of your help. So to everyone, more information about everything we've discussed will be in the show notes. And you can find us all of our past shows on Facebook and on YouTube. And otherwise, you can reach out to us at globalliver.org, on our Facebook channel, on Karen's Facebook and her blog. We'll make sure you have that information, on the Hepatitis B Foundation's information and websites. And until next week, be safe, be well, and stay connected. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.